Krishnamurthy, who wrote under the pen name Kalki. He was a Tamil writer, journalist, poet, critic, and Indian independence activist. He wrote 120 short stories, 10 novelettes, 5 novels, 3 historical romances, editorials and political writings, and hundreds of film and music reviews. Summary of the Tiger King. It is a story of a king, Jung Bahadur of Pratibandhapuram, who was a brave warrior whose death had been predicted when he was born. The chief astrologer in his court had predicted, as the royal child was born in the hour of the bull, the tiger being its enemy, death would come to the child by a tiger. The brave prince asked all the tigers in his kingdom to be aware of him, and he came to be known as the Tiger King. This story was considered to be a rumor in the kingdom, but after looking at the events that happened subsequently, it can be concluded to be true. The prince became king at the age of 20, and considering killing a cow in self-defense also to be lawful, he went on a tiger killing spree. He was warned by the astrologer that he had danger from the 100th tiger that he encountered. As all the tigers in his kingdom had been killed, still he had to kill more of them. So he married into a state which had a high population of tigers. As he killed 99 tigers, he was desperate, seeking the next hunt. Fearing the king's harshness, his minister planted an old tiger in the forest for the king to kill. Here you can see the author has used satire in the words, wandered into the Maharaja's presence and stood as if in humble supplication. These words are used for the old tiger that indicate that the tiger had understood the king's vow and gave into it. He begged the king to kill it and fulfill his vow. It shows the pride of the king. The king fired at the tiger, but it escaped the bullet miraculously. The royal hunters feared the king, and so they did not inform him, rather they killed the tiger themselves. The king, being satisfied that he had evaded death and fulfilled his vow, celebrated his son's 3rd birthday. As a gift, he got a wooden tiger for his son. Although the toy tiger was poorly done, the shopkeeper sold it to the king at a high price because he feared punishment under the rules of emergency. As both the king and his son were playing with the tiger, one of the thin pieces of wood that were erupting out of the toy like feathers pierced the king's right hand. The wound became infectious, it was full of pus, and it spread through his arm, and as he was being operated upon for it, he died. So here we can see that ironically, the 100th tiger killed the king indeed and eventually took its revenge. A tiger which was a wooden toy and not made of blood and flesh. But finally it was a tiger who killed the king. And so the prediction of the astrologer has been proved to be true. Difficult words in the chapter. Stuka, which has been used here, it is a German dive bomber and ground attack aircraft. We can also call it a fighter plane. Indomitable means someone who is unbeatable. Sore is a wound. The lines in the lesson, the Tiger King has reached that final abode of all living creatures, implies that the Tiger King has died. Transfixed is to become motionless in astonishment. Stupefaction is the feeling of senselessness. Rife is something which is widespread. Quake means shaken. Hindsight means understanding an event after it has happened. Suppurating means to swell up and full of pus. Tuft is a bunch of hair which is kept by the men at the back of their head. Incoherent means confused. Proclamation is a formal announcement made by the king. Fling means to throw. Confiscate is to take away with authority. Durai is Tamil word for chief or leader. Deliberations means talks. Durai Sani here in the text is used to indicate the wife of the British officer. Harakiri is a ritual suicide practiced by the samurai in Japan. Brandishing means waving as a threat or in excitement. Shuddering means trembling. Babble means to murmur continuously. Anxiety is uneasiness or strong desire. Fever pitch is something which reaches extremity. Wantonly means baselessly. Flout is disregard or disobey. Obstinacy means being stubborn. Alarmingly is rapidly. Discontented means unhappy. Catastrophic is extremely disastrous. Satyagraha means Mahatma Gandhi's way of political resistance. Humble means to feel modest. Supplication is the act of appeal for something. Elation means to be overjoyed. Bafflement is confusion. Slivers are thin pieces. Quills are feathers. Important questions from the chapter. The story is a satire on the conceit of those in power. How does the author employ the literary device of dramatic irony in the story? The answer to this question is, the king was full of pride. He thought he could achieve anything, even overpower death. He tried to prove the predictions of the royal astrologer false. He predicted death for the king by a tiger. As the king killed one, the astrologer cautioned him as the 100th tiger that he came across. Ironically, the king killed the 100th tiger also and overpowered death. But as it was destined to be, the tiger escaped the bullet miraculously. He had killed ferocious tigers of flesh and blood, but his satirical death came by a wooden toy tiger which he had got as a birthday gift for his son. A tiny piece of wood from the toy wounded the great king's hand and finally killed him. This was an unexpected end of the mighty Maharaja, the Tiger King. The next question is, what is the author's indirect comment on subjecting innocent animals to the willfulness of human beings? The answer is, the author is indicating that the king, being mighty, killed so many innocent animals merely to prove the astrologer wrong or to overcome his fear without realizing the severity of his actions. He did not accept destiny, which has its own ways, as death finally struck upon him by a lifeless wooden tiger. The next question, how would you describe the behavior of the Maharaja's minions towards him? Do you find them truly sincere towards him, or are they driven by fear when they obey him? Do we find a similarity in today's political order? The answer is, they feared him and so were not sincere towards him. The instances from the chapter. First, the astrologer was initially reluctant to predict the king's future. It was when the king asked him to speak without fear that he spoke. The next one, the minister did not advise the king not to kill so many innocent animals. Rather, he searched for a kingdom with a high population of tigers for the king to kill. The next instance is, the royal hunters did not inform the king about the 100th tiger being alive as they feared losing their job. Another instance, the shopkeeper sold the toy tiger to the king at a high price because he feared